Every single week, another YouTube video pops up telling you to sell everything and move to Southeast Asia. Cheap rent, beautiful beaches, pad Thai for $2. They make it sound like paradise, with a price tag your pension can handle. And honestly, for some people, it can be exactly that. But here's what those channels leave out. In 2026, 7 countries in this region have specific problems that could turn your dream retirement into an expensive, frustrating, or even dangerous mistake. We are not talking about vague warnings. We are talking about visa programs that tripled their requirements overnight, healthcare systems that will medevac you to another country for a broken hip, and immigration crackdowns that are deporting people who have lived somewhere for years. These are 7 Southeast Asian countries you should not move to in 2026 unless you fully understand what you are getting into. Let's start with the most obvious one. Number 7. Myanmar. If you have been watching expat content for a while, you might remember a time when Myanmar was the exciting new frontier. Yangon had a growing cafe scene, Bagan was being called the next Angkor Wat, and early expats were staking out cheap apartments in neighborhoods that felt like Bangkok did 20 years ago. That is all gone now. Since the military coup in February 2021, Myanmar has been locked in a civil war that shows no signs of ending. The Tatmadaw, the military government, controls some urban areas, but large portions of the country are contested by resistance forces. Entire regions have seen their infrastructure collapse. Banks have restrictions on withdrawals. The internet gets shut down regularly. Foreign embassies have reduced their presence to skeleton crews. For a retiree, this is not a matter of inconvenience. It is a matter of basic safety. If something goes wrong medically, there is no reliable system to get you out. If the political situation shifts in your neighborhood, you cannot count on your embassy to evacuate you quickly. Even getting money into the country has become a logistical headache. Myanmar was never an easy place to retire, but in 2026, it is not even on the table, full stop. Now, the next country on this list might surprise some of you because it rarely gets mentioned in these conversations. Number 6. Laos. Laos is gorgeous. Luang Prabang feels like stepping into a painting. The Mekong River at sunset, Buddhist monks collecting alms at dawn, waterfalls hidden in jungle that most tourists never find. For a short visit, it is one of the most magical places in all of Asia. But living there as a retiree is a completely different story. First, there is no retirement visa. Laos does not offer one. Your options are essentially tourist visas that you keep renewing, or trying to set up a business, which comes with its own headaches in a country where the bureaucracy moves at a pace that would test the patience of a Buddhist monk. Then there is poor health care. Outside of Vientiane, the capital, medical facilities are extremely basic. We are talking about clinics where the equipment dates back decades and where a serious condition means you are getting on a plane to Bangkok. If you are 65 years old with a heart condition, that is not a minor detail. That is potentially life or death, and the nearest quality hospital across the Thai border could be hours away. The economy has also been struggling. The Lao kip has lost significant value against the dollar and the Thai baht in recent years, which sounds great for your purchasing power until you realize it means the country is having trouble importing medicine, fuel, and the goods that make daily life functional. Power outages are common outside major cities. Internet connectivity is unreliable. Currency problems. Laos is a wonderful place to visit for 2 weeks. It is a risky place to bet your retirement on. And that brings us to a country that gets recommended constantly in the expat community, sometimes for the wrong reasons. Number 5. Cambodia. Cambodia has one thing going for it that almost no other country in the region can match: simplicity. Getting a visa is straightforward. The retirement visa, called the ER visa, is available to anyone over 55 and can be renewed annually. There is no massive bank deposit required, no mandatory property purchase, no complicated tier system. And that ease of entry has attracted a lot of expats over the years, many of them retirees looking for the cheapest possible option in Southeast Asia. But here is what that simplicity is hiding. Healthcare in Cambodia is genuinely concerning for older expats. The private hospitals in Phnom Penh are passable for minor issues: a dental cleaning, basic blood work, a routine checkup. But anything serious, a cardiac event, a stroke, or a complex surgery, and you are getting evacuated to Bangkok or Singapore. That is not an exaggeration. It is what every expat health insurance plan in Cambodia is designed around. They build medical evacuation into the policy because everyone knows the local system cannot handle it. And the requirements are starting to tighten. As of late 2025, Cambodia added new prerequisites to the retirement visa, including proof of a pension or retirement scheme, a health certificate, and a criminal background check. Still easier than most countries, but the direction is clear. The era of Cambodia being completely wide open is slowly closing. Safety is another factor that deserves honest discussion. Phnom Penh has improved significantly, and Siem Reap remains a relatively calm tourist town. But infrastructure across the country is still decades behind Thailand or Malaysia. Roads outside major cities can be genuinely dangerous. Construction standards are inconsistent, and petty crime targeting foreigners, particularly older expats who are visibly carrying cash or valuables, is a real and documented problem. Cambodia can work for a certain type of retiree, someone who is healthy, adaptable, comfortable with uncertainty, and has a solid evacuation plan. But for the average person watching this video, the risks probably outweigh the savings. Now let's talk about a country that keeps showing up on best places to retire lists despite having one massive, disqualifying problem. Number 4, Vietnam. Vietnam is incredible. The food alone is worth a month-long trip. Ho Chi Minh City buzzes with energy. Da Nang has some of the best beaches in Asia. Hanoi is culturally rich in a way that takes years to fully appreciate. And the cost of living is genuinely low, even by Southeast Asian standards. So why is it on this list? Because Vietnam does not have a retirement visa. No retirement visa. That is not a small detail. That is the entire foundation of your legal right to live somewhere long-term, and it simply does not exist here. If you want to retire in Vietnam, your main options are deeply flawed. You can do perpetual visa runs on tourist visas, leaving the country every 90 days, re-entering, and hoping immigration does not flag your pattern. This used to be common, but Vietnam has been cracking down on it. Officials are increasingly asking questions about why someone keeps entering on tourist visas if they are clearly living in the country. Getting turned away at the border after you have already shipped your furniture to Da Nang is not a theoretical risk anymore. The other option is the investor visa, which requires you to invest 115,000 United States dollars into a qualifying Vietnamese project. For a retiree looking to stretch a pension, that is a huge chunk of money locked up in a foreign investment in a country where the legal system can be opaque and enforcement is unpredictable. There is talk of a golden visa being developed, potentially offering 5 to 10-year stays for qualified foreigners. But as of early 2026, it remains a proposal. Nothing has been enacted. Betting your retirement on a visa that does not exist yet is not a plan. It is a wish. Vietnam is also strict about overstays. Get caught, and you face fines, deportation, and potential re-entry bans. The immigration system here does not have the informal flexibility that places like Cambodia or Thailand historically offered. If Vietnam ever creates a proper retirement visa, it would instantly become one of the best options in the region. But in 2026, it is a country you can visit beautifully but cannot legally retire in without significant financial commitment or ongoing legal uncertainty. If you are finding this helpful, hit subscribe. We cover Southeast Asia retirement realities every week. No sugarcoating. Now let us move to a destination that has been the poster child for paradise living for decades, but in 2026 is going through its most dramatic shift in years. Number 3. Indonesia, and specifically Bali. For years, Bali was the dream. Rent a villa in Ubud for $800 a month, eat nasi goreng for $2, watch the sunset over the rice terraces, and live a life that looks like a magazine cover. That version of Bali is disappearing fast. Starting in 2025, Indonesian immigration launched one of the most aggressive enforcement campaigns in the country's history. Officers are conducting unannounced inspections at co-working spaces, villas, cafes, and beach clubs across Canggu, Ubud and Seminyak. They are checking visa documents, work permits, and tax identification numbers. Foreigners working remotely on tourist visas, which technically means anyone answering emails for a foreign employer, are in direct violation of immigration law. Then there is the tax residency trap. If you spend more than 183 days in Indonesia within any 12-month period, you become a tax resident. That means Indonesia expects you to report and pay taxes on your worldwide income. Those 183 days are cumulative. Quick visa runs to Singapore or Malaysia do not reset the counter. Every day physically spent in Indonesia counts, regardless of how many times you entered and exited. On top of that, Bali now charges a mandatory tourist levy of 150,000 Indonesian rupiah per entry. There is a draft regulation moving through the Bali provincial legislature that would require visitors to show 3 months of bank statements and proof of $2,000 before entering on a visa on arrival. That regulation has not been enacted yet, but the direction tells you everything about where things are headed. The island is also dealing with severe over-tourism. Traffic in South Bali is gridlocked. Waste management infrastructure cannot keep up. Water resources are strained. The serene, spiritual Bali that attracted the first wave of expats is being buried under construction projects, Instagram tourism, and rising costs. Indonesia still has incredible things to offer, but the gap between visiting Bali for 2 weeks and building a retirement there has never been wider. Number 2. The Philippines. The Philippines has long been the budget option in Southeast Asia retirement conversations. English is widely spoken, the people are warm and welcoming, the SRRV retirement visa gives you permanent residency, and the cost of living, especially outside Manila, can be remarkably low. But there are real problems here that budget-focused content tends to gloss over. Fraud is a major issue. According to recent GSMA research, over 52% of Filipinos surveyed said they have been scammed at least once, which is 7 points higher than the ASEAN average. For older expats who may not be as digitally savvy, this is a genuine and growing threat. Scam operations have become increasingly sophisticated, with artificial intelligence-generated phishing emails and fake investment schemes specifically targeting foreign retirees. Healthcare is the other major concern. Manila and Cebu have solid private hospitals, but once you step outside those major cities, medical quality drops sharply. The Philippines is an archipelago of over 7,000 islands, and getting from a small island to a major hospital during a medical emergency can take hours. United States Medicare is not accepted. Most hospitals require payment at the time of service. Natural disasters are not an edge case. They are a regular feature of life. The Philippines sits directly in the typhoon belt. Multiple major typhoons make landfall every year. Earthquakes are common, and volcanic activity is ongoing. If you live in a beachside home on a remote island, you need a serious disaster preparedness plan. SRRV visa. The deposit requirements were increased in September 2025, and the program now has stricter pension documentation rules. If your retirement income comes from a 401k or a drawdown arrangement rather than a traditional defined benefit pension, getting approved has become significantly more complicated. The Philippines can be wonderful for the right person, but affordable does not mean easy, and the gap between those two things is wider here than almost anywhere else in the region. And that brings us to number 1, the country that breaks my heart a little to put on this list, because for years it was genuinely one of the best retirement options in all of Asia. Number 1, Malaysia. Malaysia had everything. Modern infrastructure, world-class hospitals in Kuala Lumpur and Penang, English widely spoken, incredible food, a multicultural society, and a cost of living that let retirees live comfortably on $2,000 to $2,500 a month. And then the MM2H program, Malaysia My Second Home, got completely overhauled. And for average retirees, the door essentially closed. Here is what the MM2H program looks like in 2026. At the entry-level silver tier, which gets you a 5-year renewable visa, you need a fixed deposit of $150,000 in a Malaysian bank. You also must purchase a qualifying property. In most popular expat states like Penang, Kuala Lumpur, and Selangor, the minimum property purchase for foreigners is 600,000 to 1 million Malaysian ringgit, depending on the state and property type. That is roughly 130,000 to 220,000 US dollars. You must complete that property purchase within 12 months of your visa being approved. And here's the real kicker. You cannot sell that property for 10 years. If you do, your visa gets canceled unless you are buying something more expensive to replace it. At the gold tier, the fixed deposit jumps to 500,000 US dollars. At platinum, it is 1 million US dollars. These are not retirement visa programs. These are investor migration programs dressed up in retirement clothing. You also must spend a minimum of 90 cumulative days per year in Malaysia, and all applications must go through a government-licensed MM2H agency. You cannot handle it yourself. Agency fees add another layer of cost on top of everything else. The old MM2H program, before the 2021 overhaul, required a fraction of these amounts. Long-term expats who built their lives in Malaysia under the old rules have watched the goalposts move dramatically. Some have left. Others are holding on to legacy visas and hoping the rules do not change again. For a retiree on a typical pension, someone pulling in $2,000 or $3,000 a month from Social Security or a modest retirement fund, the new MM2H is simply out of reach. The country that used to welcome middle-class retirees with open arms now only wants wealthy investors. That is the harsh reality of Malaysia in 2026. The country itself is still fantastic, but the visa to actually live there has become one of the most expensive long-stay programs in all of Asia. So where does that leave you? Look, Southeast Asia is still one of the best regions in the world for retirement. Nothing on this list changes that fundamental truth. Thailand, despite its own quirks and 90-day reporting requirements, still offers one of the most balanced packages for retirees. Affordable living, excellent private hospitals in Bangkok and Chiang Mai, a well-established retirement visa, and massive expat communities that can help you navigate everything. But the days of just picking a country because it sounds cheap and tropical are over. Visa requirements are tightening across the region. Tax enforcement is getting smarter. Healthcare gaps can be genuinely dangerous for older expats. And the cost of living in popular expat hubs keeps climbing. Do your research. Talk to people who actually live there, not people trying to sell you a course about living there. Visit for 3 months before you commit to anything permanent. And make sure your visa, your healthcare plan, and your finances can handle not just the best case scenario, but the worst one. If you want to see which countries in Southeast Asia actually make sense for retirement in 2026, that video is on screen now.